Hi everyone, my name's Pauline. I'm the founder of Imagine If, and I'm here today with James, who's a director at Gleeds. And James is going to share with us his experience of coaching with me. So thanks for being here today, James.
Pleasure. Lovely to be here.
And so can you just share with us what drew you to coaching in the first place? Was it one specific thing, or was it, you wanted to change your life?
So I've always been interested in sort of personal development and finding out more about sort of life coaching and coaching, but I'd never actually gone through with it. And then obviously I met you at one of the Gleeds courses, and you were offering some coaching sessions, which I took you up on, and it was a bit of a sort of breath of fresh air for me to actually have a proper coaching session. And I think I always knew it was going to be beneficial to me, but I didn't realize just how beneficial it was going to be until you actually do it. You can read about it in books and you can hear about other people's experiences, but until you do it yourself, and it's very personal to you, then it's hard to sort of quantify how good it is.
Mm. Yeah. And how was your experience? Was it different to what you expected it was going to be like?
In some ways it was similar in terms of, because I'd read about it and had know people who've had coaching before. I kind of knew the format, but it was different. The way that it made me feel was different. I'm quite sort of factual with the way that I deal with things and sort of like planning things. So I thought if you do X, Y, and Z, that will be the result. But actually, spending an hour coaching, the positive effect of that is totally different to what you can kind of logically think it will be. And you may walk away with what you think is an answer to a problem or an issue, but it's only sort of 3 or 4 days later that it would have ticked something else inside of you that then comes out, and that's the solution. So I think the results were different. The format was similar, but the results were quite different.
Yeah. So you said the way it made you feel. How is that different?
I think it just, really getting in touch with yourself, with somebody else in the room is a different experience. I'm quite a spiritual person, so I've done meditation, things like that, where that makes you feel sort of attached or some kind of spiritual sort of connection. But doing it with somebody else in the room where you're having a coaching session is a totally different feeling. So it gives you a feeling of clarity, because you're having those insights that you might have when you're doing it individually, but you're sharing that with somebody, and that enables you to delve deeper into a particular issue. So for example, if you're meditating, or if you're just sitting there and a thought pops into your head, you get some clarity, you dwell on that, and then that can be some kind of insight. But with coaching, you then almost peel off another layer and another layer and another layer. So it's a much deeper feeling.
Yeah. And what were the highlights for you in terms of things that changed in your life and what you experienced?
In a way, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, because I've come such a long way since we started coaching, but a lot of it ends up being the obvious kind of solutions. But you've got to arrive there, and you've got to go on a whole journey to arrive there. So I think, just going on that, it's enabled me to go on that journey and then arrive back at the obvious solutions. So, just trying to take an example, a lot was about how I sort of juggle my work life and my personal life and my personal interests. And when someone sort of says to you, you need to do X, Y, and Z, sort of balance things out, plan things, or that's all well and good. But with coaching, I think you go through that journey and you realize why you need to do those things, not just sort of the generic why, but the why for you, really, really deep down. So an example for me is I've really changed my attitude in terms of sleep and my relationship with sleep, into somebody who would wake up, have to rush to get ready, get out the door before you know you're in the middle of meetings, to really actually owning the morning now and waking up early. And then, you know, really that is my golden period of the day. Now, you could have read that in a billion books before, and you know, everyone will say the morning's important and it's important to do that. And I would have read it and I would have digested it and it all made sense, but I never would have done it. By doing coaching, it made me understand why. So there's no massive like insight. Nothing that I've done is like, oh my God, there's the secret to life or something. It's just making you understand why you've got to do it, your own personal why and your own personal reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool, because as you say, it's like, seems really obvious, doesn't it? You know, I've got to get lots of sleep, but it's that awareness of what it means to you in your life,
Yeah.
that actually embeds it in your life so that you continue to do it. And it's not just a thing that you think, oh, this is a really good idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's giving yourself some ownership, because I think there's a huge difference when you've got a personal reason to do something, a real kind of concrete why, if you know. So, you know, getting out of bed when the alarm goes off, when you've kind of set out your vision and your mission, if you like, makes it a lot easier to get out of bed when you know you're going to be doing something that helps you towards that path, than if you wake up, oh shit, just another day, oh, I've got this meeting, I've got this problem to solve. You know, and look, I don't do it every day. You know, there's days I fall back, but that's good, because the days that I fall back, I realize why I do it. And you know, I keep a journal now, which is another new thing I do, and it's amazing. One of the things that I write consistently in the journal is that the days that I fall back, the next day I write, oh, why do I ever fall back? You know, it's something along those lines. But I still do it because it's human nature every so often. But I love my journal now, because I read back on it and you can just see these patterns, these trends that put you in these weird places. And a lot of it is ridiculous, you know, it's stupid human behavior that's linked to whatever's in our DNA a lot of the time. And that's what you're fighting against yourself a lot of the time, and your own human instincts and DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so true.
Mm.
You know, we're conditioned to believe that, you know, almost looking after yourself and focusing on yourself is selfish.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, the quality of your experience of life is so great if you nourish yourself first.
Yeah.
And then you can be of service to others.
Precisely.
Yeah. And was there anything about the process or just going through coaching that you found challenging?
I suppose that the most challenging thing, which you soon get over if you embrace it, is being honest. So, you know, you could go into coaching with that ego attached to you, basically saying everything's fine, or, you know, try and filter everything through your ego. But as soon as you get past that, and, you know, we had some pretty difficult conversations about things in my life, which were difficult to say at the time, but that's the only way you really get anything out of it, by breaking through that barrier and saying everything, warts and all. And you know, I think a lot of people might find it quite difficult to be honest, but it doesn't have to be a switch. I think it's a gradual process. You know, if you've never done coaching before, you've never been even sort of spiritually minded at all, you know, the journey to that might take longer. With me, because I was already sort of along that path with other disciplines, such as, you know, reading and meditation and things like that, I was kind of primed for it a little bit. So, but for someone coming into it totally cold, it doesn't mean that you can't get there. It just might take a few sessions longer to sort of break it down and realize actually it's okay to talk about all these things, and that it doesn't make you bad or failure, or you know, I think that's probably what a lot of people have got. Their ego will get in the way and will stop them being truthful.
Yeah, It is. It's quite scary to say things sometimes, but we almost play with that in the room, don't we? You know, it doesn't have to be true.
Yeah.
Just something that is getting in your way,
Mm.
that in exploring it in the coaching situation, you can almost see it from a distance and get some real awareness of it.
Yeah, it's and it's like, as I said, like breaking through. So you see it, and then you're like, for some people, it'll be hard to you know. Actually, I know I need to go here, but they'll pull back for various reasons, I suppose. Some of it will be ego, some of it will be pride, some of it will be they're just not ready. You know, some people just aren't ready. You know, people in my family. You know, some people. You know, some people will be. Very open to these things, and you know, if I talk to my dad, for instance, he'll be like, sort of a load of mumbo jumbo. But you know, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that some people don't need it, or some people aren't ready for it. So everyone gets to it at their right time.
Yeah.
I'm still convinced that, you know, if I hadn't sort of met you, I would have gone along this path anyway. And funny enough, one of my friends now is a coach as well. So, you know, more and more coaches are coming into my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. I find it incredible how, you know, that sort of synchronicity works. And I'm seeing it more and more, especially over lockdown, because I've really, you know, becoming a very, very avid reader now, and doing more and more in the kind of reading spiritual texts, reading more and more sort of self-help stuff, and having these kind of sessions. And you start joining the dots between things. And the amount of times I've said, for instance, watched something or spoken to somebody and then read something, and then you're like, wow, where did that connection come from? That's uncanny. But I think they're always there. It's just that you notice them. I think the connections are everywhere. And do this stuff. Oh, I don't know what that noise was. The more that you do this stuff, the more that those, it's almost like invisible ink, I think of it. You know, you've got all these amazing connections there, whether it's in business life, personal life, spiritual life. And the more that you work on yourself and nourish yourself, the more that invisible ink becomes legible, and you start connecting these dots.
Yeah.
And it happens everywhere. It really does. And, you know, I know it sounds a bit kind of, but I do think that the way that you think and the kind of thoughts that you have do dictate how these things manifest. So if you are, you know, always thinking negative thoughts and the worst and everything, and very kind of cynical about everything, then everything, you know, it transpires, everything comes across to prove your point. You know, everything's bad that you predicted, you know, all those cynical things that you thought about come true. But if you do sort of change your mindset and just try and shift the pendulum a little bit towards positive rather than negative, no one can have positive thoughts all the time, but just shifting that pendulum so you're over the 50% mark towards the positive, I think it's amazing. And the times that I'm in that zone, and it's not all the time, but the times I'm in that zone where I am positive and I'm thinking positive thoughts, things just keep showing up. It's just ridiculous sometimes. You know, emails will pop out of nowhere, and you know, you'll be thinking, oh, I wish I could have that, and that will happen. And then, but the converse happens when you're in that funk sometimes, where you're feeling a bit ill, or you're feeling a bit pissed off with something. Sorry, I shouldn't have sworn there. You have to bleep that. You know, you know what it's like when you're ill. Everything starts going wrong, doesn't it? Because the thoughts are in your mind, negative thoughts, and you know, bloody a bill shows up on the time. It's always when you're ill, doesn't it? That a bad bill shows up. But it's always when you're in that positive mind frame that these opportunities show up. So I think it's been incredible how I've really shifted my mindset to allow more opportunities into my life. Yeah,
because really coaching is practicing having a conversation with yourself. It's almost like I'm not there, because you know, I may ask you the odd question or be a mirror to you, but really it's your truth coming more into the present, if you like, and being more present. Yeah. And less of the ego looking for reasons, as you described, reasons why it's right.
Yeah.
The world is a terrible place or whatever. You just get used to hearing your truth
Yeah.
for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so cool. And how would you say, is there anything else in terms of how it's impacted your life in relationships or anything else you'd like to share?
I think being comfortable with who I am has been really important. So um, being in a business where you have to meet a lot of clients and lots of business development as my sort of main job meant I thought you have to be an extrovert and you have to be this all singing, all dancing person. The minute you realize that most of the world aren't extroverts, including your clients, then that changes everything, because you realize that actually you can connect with people in a different way. So I realized that I'm neither one nor the other. I am an introvert, really, but I do have extrovert tendencies, but I just need the ability to recharge. So I do like relationships with people and I do like meeting people, but it has to be kind of on my terms, and I have to then give myself a chance to recharge. So with that in mind, I'm really cool with saying no to things now. And obviously lockdown has helped that, and it reinforced that. And it's actually reinforced it with my family, because my wife, who I always thought was an extrovert, you know, she basically come out and said, no, you know, lockdown has made it clear to her that she's not really either. You know, social interactions she loves, but it is energy sapping. Some people take energy from social situations. Some people it eats energy, and we're both that. So we're much cooler with saying no to things and not being ashamed of that. And that's allowed relationships, both in business. So in personal lives, that's allowed relationships to become a lot better, because you know, there's more kind of one-to-one relationships going on. But then I am comfortable in groups of sort of old friends, so that will continue. So it's just really judging the situation. And then in business, you know, really understanding that most of my clients, and maybe it's because I am that kind of person, but most of my clients are similar to me. They're introverts. They would prefer a nice quiet lunch with maybe 2 or 3 other people than a big party. And they love it, because, you know, they're not the kind of people who show up to a big party. That doesn't mean I don't show up to big parties. Of course I will. But it's understanding that my natural inclination and the way that I do things best is by developing that connection, that deep connection. And I think that's the difference between extroverts and introverts. Extroverts can make people feel good by making them, you know, have a good time on quite a superficial level. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't, you know, I'm not saying superficial, but they can let people enjoy themselves and come out of themselves and really have a good time. I think introverted people have the power to create a really deep connection, which in a way is a lot of stronger. You could develop a lot stronger bond. And I think there's no accident that a lot of my relationships, both personally and at work, are very long relationships.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're just clearer about what works for you and what doesn't, and you do a lot more of the what works for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot to do with age as well. You know, when you're young, you kind of have to sort of toe the line a little bit and do what's being told. But as you get older, you're able to push back a bit more. So I do realise that not everyone's in a situation where they can just do what they want to do. And even, you know, before lockdown, it was for me, you know, this was kind of my preferred way of working from home, say 3 days a week, and then going out before we went into the second lockdown, going out again, you know, maybe 1 or 2 days a week. That's perfect for me. But I wouldn't have had the guts maybe to do that before, because I'd still have been social pressures to be at your desk at work. So it's not perfect, and I've still got work to do. But as I said, it's amazing how you know, just things do happen, and enables you to either test your own theories or not. So, you know, if there's anything positive that's come out of the COVID, it's kind of reinforced to me that I was right in my instincts, that this does suit me. Yeah. I know some people who have been the other way around, who thought that this is what they wanted, and it's absolutely not. And I was talking to one of my good friends yesterday, and he says, I can't do this anymore. So it's also quite interesting the other way, that sometimes when you're forced into a situation, it can reinforce what you didn't think was the case.
Yeah, yeah, certainly a very interesting time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I think just to sort of reinforce how powerful coaching can be, and that it shouldn't be seen as psychoanalyst or you know, kind of hippie mumbo jumbo or anything like that. It's really not. It's actually really practical. If you are like that, it's great as well, because it kind of reinforces all that, but it doesn't have to be at all. It can be very, very practical as well. Just, you've got a problem, talk it through, and it helps you solve the problem. So it doesn't really matter whether you're that way inclined, sort of spiritually inclined, or whether you're just you're thinking, I'm not into all that kind of hippie stuff. It's not like that at all. You can be quite precise with it. And actually, you never know, it might actually open up something that you didn't know about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do put labels on things, or the ego does, to say, oh, that's hippie stuff. What I realized in the process of doing my website and these calls and looking at what I do, is actually bringing consciousness and presence into businesses. People who often, very much in their heads, very much in their egos, and actually becoming more and more connected to who you truly are is even more powerful.
It is, absolutely. And if everybody could practice that, and I think a lot of problems in families and boardrooms is to do with the ego. That's what causes all these arguments. And if everybody just practiced a bit of this, I think people will be working together to solve situations, whether it's a family argument or a boardroom argument. I think just treating people with more respect, first of all. I think it definitely does that, because you realize that we're all human beings after all, and everyone's got their problems, right? Everyone. And so by doing coaching, as well as not fixing, but helping to understand you, you also start realizing that we're all the same, and everyone's got problems, everyone's got an issue. It's that old saying, you won't want to swap your life for someone else's if you knew what they were going through, which is so true, because everyone's got their own problems.
Yeah, and opportunities to be aware that life's not always what you think it is.
No, but that's fine though, because that's something else that I've discovered, is that the problems. So we manufacture problems in our mind, don't we? And everything can become a problem if you want it to. And it's been, that's been another sort of insight for me. It's just, you have these putting factors on the one. Just take an example. You've got, like, on one hand, you've got to be working hard towards your goals and your dreams. On the other hand, you've got this, just live in the moment and be at peace and rest and relax. And they're constantly pulling at you, and you can't. Sometimes they are, they do conflict, and that used to really make me almost throw in the towel. As well, how can these two things be? They're totally different. They both make sense, but they're totally different. But actually, they're just two different tools in the toolbox that you use at different times and when you need them. Sometimes you do need to go with just leave everything. Everything's fine. Just be at peace. Other times, you probably want to be pushing a bit harder, and you want to be working towards your goals, depending on so many factors: how you feel, what's happening in your life, what the weather's like. And that was quite a big insight for me, realizing that these things you don't have to compete against each other. They can all be complementary, even when they appear to be totally contradictory.
Yeah, that's often where the juice is.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really wonderful that you're sharing the glorious weather behind you.
Yeah, it's lovely out there today. Yeah.
And thanks for inspiring me to change my background.
If only that was the reality. Actually, it's quite nice. The real background isn't too bad today. It's not raining.
All right, James, thanks very much for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it.
No worries.